Welcome to this presentation on how to improve your maths grade. So the agenda today is we're going to talk about the only two ways that you can improve your maths grade. So way number one is to get more effective. Way number two is to just do more. We'll talk about the effect and we'll talk a little bit about how to implement this. So let's talk about the only two ways. Way number one is to get more effective. And I can think about a few things that we can do to be more effective. Firstly, let's make things easier. Secondly, let's make things more interesting. Thirdly, let's make it more meaningful. And finally, let's make things repeatable. So let's talk about those in a bit more depth. And I'm going to give you a little quote that goes along with each one. So first of all, let's talk about how can we make things more easy. Make it easy to start and make it harder to stop. So I want you to think about the things that go on in your life that are really super easy to start. And then once you're doing it, it's really hard to stop. Something like playing on your phone. So how easy is it for me to play on my phone? You can see my granddad sort of case there. So how easy is it? Well, I double tap that, I just look at it and my face, the thing recognises my face and it's already open. Okay, and then it's like, okay, I want to scroll on TikTok. So I'll just click on TikTok and then before I know it, I'm already scrolling and I'm having a nice time scrolling on TikTok and looking at silly videos. Okay, really easy. Maybe it's something like your PlayStation or maybe it's your Xbox. You just go in, press the TV, press the on switch, and you're already playing. That makes it easy to start. How about harder to stop? To make it harder to stop, it needs to be enjoyable. It needs to go smoothly. I need to have a plan. I need to know what I'm doing. Well, playing on my phone, it's like, well, it's really engaging, so I'm not going to stop doing it. Playing on my PlayStation or doing whatever I'm doing, playing Fortnite or FIFA, whatever it is, and I'm playing that, it's really engaging. It's hard to stop, so I'm not going to put it down, so I'm going to do it for longer. If I make it easier to start, harder to stop, I'm going to do it for longer. Let's apply that to revision. So I want you to start every revision session. I don't care how long it is, whether it's a 15-minute revision session, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. I want you to start either the first 10 minutes or the first 10 marks of your revision session as something really super simple. So maybe for you, super simple is BIDMAS. Maybe it's multiplying negative numbers. Maybe it's multiplying out brackets, whatever it is. Pick something which is super easy to start because then you can build momentum. And if you start with something which gives you a bit of encouragement, so something easy, you can then increase the difficulty level as you go along, okay? And you can build momentum. Next, have a clear plan of the session. Now, we'll talk about the planning and how we can sort of do that a bit later on, but what is your plan of the session going to look like? You can't just go, well, here's my maths textbook, let's turn to the page, just going to flick through. I'm going to do 15 minutes revision today. I'm looking, it says time intervals. Do I need to do that or not? Oh, I don't really know. Okay, so I'll do the first question. Sort of can't do. I'll leave that one for now, blah, blah, going through it. And before you know it, you've already sunk 10 minutes into the session and you've not gone anywhere. That's why we need that plan. Okay, so a plan could be something simple as at the start of the year or the start of the week or something, you take a test paper and you look at pick, let's say 5 topics you don't know, and then for the next 5 revision days, you pick 1 topic each, and that becomes your revision session. And you set a timer and you say, I'm doing it for 45 minutes, and that's the planning done for the session. And the topic is, let's say it's BIDMAS, and you just Google, YouTube, Maths Genie, Corbett Maths, BBC Bitesize, whatever it is, you type in BIDMAS, and then you revise that for 45 minutes. You start off with something dead simple, like we said, to build momentum, start with really easy questions, and then we build up. Next, remove distractions. We've already talked about the phone. We've already spoke about the phone already. So, thinking about distractions. I'm looking around this room and I'm thinking to myself, what are things, this is my office, what things in this room is making it harder for me to stay on task and to stay doing my work and staying in deep work? Well, I'm looking around, I've got a dartboard there. Sometimes every 10 minutes, I'm like, I just want to throw some darts at it. I've got my phone here. I've got some stupid tape I sometimes like playing with. I've got this stupid little, I don't know what this is, ostrich, whatever it is. Ostrich? Don't know. If anyone knows what this is, tell me. What else have I got? I've got 2 guitars there. I've got a violin there. I've got a badminton racket. I've got a guitar amp. I've got so many things around here which are distracting, which I should probably take them out. But I would say the most interesting and distract-worthy thing is my phone. Now, I want you to take a moment. You can pause the video now if you want to. And I want you to do this. If you've got an Android, you can copy my instructions. If you've got an iPhone, don't know how it works, but we can sort of figure it out. I want you to go to the settings page. Okay, and if you've got an Android like me, I want you to go down to the digital wellbeing and parental controls. And I want you to click on the one which says social. Now, today, you can see there, today I've spent 1 hour on social media. So when I'm recording this, this is August 2024. This is the 30th, I think it is today. Yeah, 30th. And this is transfer deadline day. So I've just been on Instagram all day, just refreshing my feed to see who's signing for my football club. And it's been a waste because I could have just checked it in the day and I just knew anyway. But I've sunk and lost 1 hour's worth of my time there. Now that's 1 hour. I could have done that 1 hour of something else. I could have done some work. But that's 1 hour today. Over the course of a week, that's 7 hours. Over the course of a month, that's 30 hours. Well, 30 hours is how much you guys spend in school per week. So essentially, I'm sinking and losing a whole school week's worth of work by just going, oh, that person has a nice cat. Oh, that's a funny video. Oh, that's also a funny video. Oh, that's also a funny video, and so on and so on. And 1 hour, by the way, is on the very, very low side of the averages. Most people sink about 3, 4, 5 hours a day. When you scale that up, it's an unimaginable amount of time. A lot of people say they ain't got time to do things. Check your phone, have a look. How much time do you spend scrolling? If it's anything more than 2 hours, you have got time to spend elsewhere. Okay, so removing distractions, take this out of the room. If you're in your bedroom, unhook the Xbox, unplug the TV, take the Xbox out of the room. Any other distractions, take them out of the room. If your phone needs to be in the room, turn notifications off. If you're getting a Snapchat every 10 seconds and you're going deep work, Snapchat, oh, cute dog face, blah, 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 that's distraction. Take it out of the room, get rid of the distractions. Next, don't credit your results. I want you to credit your efforts. Now think about what that means. If your result needs to be, let's say, a grade 4, if you're only focusing on your grade 4 pass, or maybe you're somebody aiming for a grade 7 plus on the higher tier, if you're just aiming for this result, you're not going to make the effort part easy at all. Because let's say for you to get your pass, it's going to cost you 100 revision sessions this year. And each revision session, let's say, is going to be, 30 minutes. So 50 hours worth of work over this course of the year, just making up some numbers. If you focus solely on the result, these 50 hours are going to be very, very difficult. But if we flip that and we focus on really trying to enjoy these 50 hours and we break them down. Let's look at the first hour, make the plan. Make the first part easy, remove distractions. Now we're zoned in, we're focusing, and then we start to think of, here's the session, here's my little checklist, I've done this question, let's check that off, I've done this next thing, let's check that off. And before you know it, if you stack up all of the evidence over the course of that year, you will then get your result. Because you flipped it. Rather than you going, I really love the result, you'll hate the effort, you'll hate the journey, flip it, focus on the journey, and the result will absolutely come to you. Next, let's make things interesting. So my quote for you on this one is, do a job that you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So what does that mean? If let's say your least favourite subject is maths. Whilst you're doing maths, it's a chore. It's not very nice because you don't find it interesting. It's like when I go and wash the dishes. It's not very interesting. It's a chore to me. But when I do my work and I'm recording videos like this, I'm really enjoying myself. So I don't feel like I'm doing work right now. So the time passes better. I'm putting more effort into it, so it's more interesting. So how can we do this? Firstly, like I said in the previous one, I want you to focus on the individual sessions. If you focus on just what's happening at the end, and you're focusing, let's say it's now September, and you're focusing on what's going to happen in May, well, September up to May is going to be excruciating. And if you don't know what that word means, it means it's blooming painful. So focus on the first school day. You've split it into five lessons. Try and enjoy the first lesson, even if it's something you don't enjoy. Focus on the little things about it that you might enjoy. So maybe you did like a nice task. Maybe the rest of it is rubbish, but maybe there was a nice task your teacher did that was fun and engaging. Maybe you're on the computers. Maybe you sit next to your best friend. Maybe you had a nice chat with the teacher about something else. And focus on the things that you can enjoy. And if you do that bit by bit, again, you're stacking up this proof. You're stacking up the evidence, and bit by bit, brick by brick, you're going to move towards that goal, and you focus on the sessions rather than focus on the results. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Next, gamify it. So I want you to think about if you are somebody who plays PlayStation, or maybe you play some kind, maybe it's like Candy Crush on your phone or something. If you play any kind of game, you treat it like a game because a game is there to be won. So if you're Fortnite, you're going to have different, I don't even know, I'm going to choose different. I'm going to choose Football Manager as a good example. So Football Manager is, at the start, I pay like 10 quid for the game and I'm just playing the game. As I'm playing the game, I'm thinking, okay, I need more money to be able to buy better players. So how do I get more money? So I'm thinking about this strategically. How can I get more money to get more players? Well, I need to sell some of my bad players, increase, maybe lower the wages of some of the players, maybe sell some of the bad players, maybe I can buy better players, maybe I can get better results mean I get more money means I can buy more players, so I'm thinking about it strategically like a game. So how can you apply this to your revision? So I don't have an answer for you, I can give you some suggestions, but maybe you can gamify this for yourselves. So maybe gamify means, say you're doing 30 questions, in your revision session. Well, maybe if you answer 5 questions right, it means you level up and you go to level 1. Maybe if you answer another 5 questions, you level up and get to level 2. So maybe you could give yourself levels. So maybe level 1 means you've answered 5 questions correct. Maybe level 2 means you've answered 15 questions correct. Maybe level 3 is 30, then maybe level 4 is 60, whatever it is. And then maybe gamifying it like that makes it a bit more interesting and you can have a better time with it. So I hope that makes sense. Or maybe it can be something as simple like you just take quizzes, or you can watch YouTube videos and you can just do little things like that. So hopefully that makes sense. Next thing, I want you to remove the things around you. This is similar to the distractions. Remove the things around you which are more interesting. So for example, I'm finding this video, making this video really interesting. So I don't feel like I need to pick up my phone. I don't feel like I need to chuck darts at a dartboard or go and pick up my guitar, because this is interesting me more than the distractions that are around me. So I don't need to worry about it. But if everything around you is more interesting, so for example, if you're finding your phone more interesting than picking up your maths textbook, take your phone out of the room. If you're finding your Xbox or whatever more interesting, some of your games, whatever, playing with your Pokemon card, I don't know. If you're finding anything in your environment more interesting, you need to get them out of the environment so that what you're focusing on remains the most engaging thing in your environment. Okay? And finally, I'm going to completely spin this on its head. It doesn't have to be interesting. Sometimes if you focus on how uninteresting something is and how much you hate it, how much you don't like it, how much it feels like a chore, you start to hate it more. But if you just don't focus on any of that and you just do it and you're just like, yeah, it's a little bit boring, okay, fine, I'll just do it. Washing the dishes is a little bit boring, okay, I'll just do it. But before you know it, you've done it. And it isn't as bad as you thought it was. So sometimes when you go into something thinking it's going to be uninteresting, thinking that it's going to be boring and tedious and hellish, it absolutely is. But if you remove those thoughts from your brain before you start it, it actually isn't that bad. Okay, next one is making it meaningful. So direction without purpose is directionless. So even if you've got a great plan and you can make things easy and you can make things interesting, if it doesn't have a purpose, it's kind of meaningless and it needs to be meaningful. So here's 3 things that I think you can do. Okay, and you can start this today, as usual. So number 1 is remind yourself of why you need to do this. Okay, this is very similar to the second one, which is remind yourself of why you want to do this. 2 very different things, but pretty much along the same line of thinking. So first one is remind yourself of why you need to do it. So let's say you need to get your GCSE maths pass because I need to get to college to do this apprenticeship, because I need to get to 6th form I need to have my grade 4 in maths and English to get onto these 3 subjects that I like. I need to do this in order to get this. That's the why, okay? And why? Because I need to do it in order to further myself, okay? The second thing is remind yourself of why you want to do it. Well, why do I want to do the maths revision? Well, I want to do something challenging, so it challenges me and I get smarter, I get more intelligent, I get more industrious, and I get better at doing things that I don't want to do. And if I get the grade that I want, I will feel better about myself. I will feel good about myself. It will give me momentum, it will give me confidence, and I will feel good enough about myself so that I can take that through to the next thing, and that next thing might be more interesting. And if I'm feeling more confident and I'm doing something more interesting, my results are going to be skyrocketed. So that's the difference between why you need to do it and why you want to do it. So I want you to think very carefully about those things. So if you want to, pause the video and have a think about those things for yourself. And then the last thing is practice marks, not grades. Okay? Practice the marks, not the grades. It's a very clear distinction. So I always say to students whenever we're going through the lessons is I always say don't aim for a grade, aim for the marks, because if we can maximize the marks, that will maximize our grade. But if we focus on the grade, the marks become a little bit meaningless because the grade is the thing that means something. But then it's like, well, how do we get to the grade? Well, let's make the marks more meaningful, and that makes the grade even more meaningful. So what do I mean by this? So what I mean is over the course of, I'm going to give AQA as a good example. AQA has 3 test papers, all of them are 80 marks. I think OCR does this as well. Edexcel might be slightly different, I think it's a different number. But anyway, it's 80, 80 and 80, so 240 marks. You have to get a certain number to get the grade. So if we're focusing on a number to get the grade, well, we need to break down this number. Let's say we need to get 140 out of 240 marks, whatever number he said. 140 marks. Where can we get these 140 marks from? Well, let's look at the topics. Let's go to this and, well, we might think, let's say 1 hour's worth of revision, I might be able to revise Pythagoras theorem. That might just be worth 3 marks over 240 marks. But if I instead revise fractions, that might only take me an hour. But that hour, fractions might be 20 marks. So that hour is much better spent. So that hour is more meaningful and it's more effective. So if we attach the meaning to the marks, the grades will then follow. Hopefully that makes sense. The next thing is we need to make it repeatable. Got a great quote for you here. I fear not the man who has practiced 100 punches, but the man who has practiced 1 punch 1,000 times. Okay, I think I should have said 1,000 instead of 100, but you get the idea. If you practice one thing an unbelievable amount of times, you're going to get so good at it. But if you practice tons of things once, you're probably equally as bad at all of them as you are with everything else. So think about it this way. What you get right should outweigh the things that you get wrong by a factor of 5. I'm just choosing 5. It's a random number. It could be 3, it could be 4. It's going to be different based on how well things sink in with you as an individual. Okay? And whatever number you think you should put there, I want you to double it because everyone gets this wrong. So, for example, you sat down, you've opened a book, or maybe you've got some kind of practice questions on, pick a topic, Pythagoras theorem, random one, and you've got 10 questions. But you've got the first 5 questions wrong. So if you've got the first 5 questions wrong, it means you don't understand it. But then you get the next 5 questions wrong. So you think, oh, great, I'm on a roll. I've got questions 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 right. But that means of those 10 questions, you've only got 50%, because it does not mean that you doing 5 questions right in a row means that you are good enough at that topic to be able to repeat it. Because the whole purpose of revising is for you to be able to repeat it in the actual exam. And if you can't, and you can just feel good about yourself for 5 minutes because you did 5 questions right, it's not going to be good enough. And it's a harsh truth, and I hate to deliver the harsh truth, but that's what needs to happen. So instead, do this. So maybe it needs to outweigh by a factor of 5. So maybe if you've got 5 questions wrong on Pythagoras theorem, to overcome that, you need to get 25 questions right. Okay? And where you can do loads and loads of practice is a website called corbetmaths.com. Just type into Google, go onto the resources page, and there's tons of stuff. You can just click on, just run a search there, type in Pythagoras, whatever you want, and it goes on there. Anyway, so next thing is I want you to practice these things on at least 3 more occasions. So you've got your 5 Pythagoras theorem questions wrong, then you've corrected it 25 times, and you think, right, I've mastered it now. But this is today. If you were to go and do those exact same 30 questions next week, would you still get 25 out of 30? Well, the thing is, you probably should be getting 30 out of 30 next week, or maybe 28 or 29 out of 30. But you should be able to repeat it. If you can't, then when you go and repeat it next week, you need to be doing some work on it again. So that's why I say practice it on 3 more occasions. So let's say you've done Pythagoras theorem today. Well, next week, 2 weeks later, go and do the same thing. Not the same amount of time, but maybe you've done an hour on a topic today. In 2 or 3 weeks' time, do 30 minutes. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, do 15 minutes. 2 or 3 weeks later, do 5 minutes. And then do that with all your topics throughout the year. Next is, this one's kind of arbitrary, and what I mean by that is I've just picked up some random numbers here, but I want you to apply this principle. So the hard topics I want you to do on a daily basis, okay? If you're doing easy things all the time, yeah, that's great, solid foundation. But hard things practice daily, medium things practice weekly, and easy things practice monthly. So the hard things we're practicing all the time, so always challenging ourselves. The medium stuff, we think we sort of know how to do it, we sort of don't know how to do it, so practicing on a weekly basis is probably enough. And easy topics, we're like, sometimes we're just like, you know what, that's so easy, I know how to do it, I don't need to focus on it. But it still needs to be there. We still need to practice these things. So you can decide how often you want to do those things. But anyway, hope that makes sense, making it repeatable. Okay, the second way, we've looked at way number one. So recapping number one, make it easy, make it interesting, make it meaningful, and make it repeatable. And like I said, you can go and stop at any point you want, and you can figure out those things for yourselves. Okay, next, the other way to improve your grade is to do more. Really, really simple. You've got to do more. So how can I do more revision? How can I do more things? How can I do more volume? So I can do more hours. I could do more days. I could start earlier in the year. I could not rely on doing revision in March and starting in March of year 11. I could start it at the end of year 10. I could start it before Christmas of year 11. I could start at the start of year 11. Start earlier. You could do more topics. You could do more papers. So let's dive in. So doing more hours. Do so much work that it takes luck out of the equation. This is something I really want you to understand, and I want you to memorize the exact words that I've just said there. Write it down somewhere. Do so much work that it takes luck out of the equation. So here's an example. Let's say you have to roll a 6 on a dice and you pass your GCSE maths, or you get the grade you want, okay? How many times would you roll that dice? Not how many times should you, but how many times would you want to roll that dice to guarantee that you get a 6? If you roll it once, you've got a 1 in 6 chance. You're probably not going to get it. If I roll it twice, well, on the first time, 1 in 6 chance. Well, the second time, I've still got 1 in 6 chance, so I'm probably going to roll it more times. If I roll it 6 times, still not a guarantee, is it? I could get 6 1s, I could get 6 2s, I could get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then a 1. So maybe you'd roll it 20 times, 30 times, 100 times. You're probably going to be rolling it a lot more times. So yeah, something to consider there. Next is 15 minutes a day enough? So if that's the more hours, if that's the bit we're talking about, if 15 minutes a day gives you a half chance of passing your exam, or a half chance of getting your target grade, let's say your target's a grade 7, so 15 minutes a day gives you a 50% chance of passing. Well, if we go from 15 minutes to 20 minutes, your 50% chance of getting that grade might go up to 55%. Well, you think, okay, well, 20 minutes isn't enough, so maybe 30 minutes. Well, maybe that gets me from 55% to 70%. We're like, okay, do I risk it on 70%? Maybe not. So 30 minutes isn't enough. 45 minutes, does that guarantee it? Doesn't guarantee me, but makes it more likely. Maybe that gets me to 85%. Well, if you've got an 85% of doing something really important, you might not want to bank on that. So what we're saying is the more work we do, the more we can get towards this 100%, right? So that takes luck out of the equation. It takes luck out of the equation, and it takes hope out of the equation. So you don't just start in March and just hope for the best. You start in September, you become more effective. You make things easier, you make things more interesting, you do more hours. If you do more hours, do more volume, you are going to remove luck and hope from the equation. Okay, next one is do more days. If you have a guitar lesson every single Monday for 1 hour, you might consider that enough. Maybe it is. But then you've had your 1 hour of practice, but then you've got 167 hours of not practicing until your next one. Think about that. If there's 24 hours in a day and we times it up by 7 days, that's 168 hours, I think. I typed in my calculator and that's what it told me. So that's 168 hours. So if I practice for 1 hour a week, well, it's 167 hours of not practicing and forgetting and not remembering until the next one. So maybe we go, instead of we do 1 hour a week, maybe instead of an hour a day, we just go, well, let's do 30 minutes a day, and that spreads it over more days. So practicing something for 30 minutes on Monday, and be really honest with you, do you think you would be actually able to remember what you did this Monday, the next Monday, and be able to repeat it? That's what we said before, it has to be repeatable. Do you think it's easy to repeat it? If the answer is yes, you might be kidding yourself. Again, remove look out of the equation. Don't just make the assumptions that you're going to be able to remember it, you're going to be able to do it. Take it out of the equation. Practice it more. Then think to yourself, how many days of practice do you think you need? Is 1 day enough? 2 days? 3 days? We don't know. Maybe you take all your important subjects, maths, English and science, and whatever really important subjects that you're taking that you want to do in the future, whatever you're doing with, and maybe do all of those 30 minutes a day, and everything else you do 30 minutes 2 or 3 times a week. But anyway, something to consider. Next is start earlier. So I really like this quote, and you've probably heard this quote quite a lot from teachers. It's the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, because you can't go back in the past, whatever, but best time's today. So let's say if you revise for 1 hour, it's going to contribute 1 extra mark. I'm just making up a number here. And let's say you revise for 2 hours a week. I've actually put some wrong numbers in there, so I'm just going to update these in my head as we go along. So if you were to start in April, okay, that gives you 7 weeks before your exams. So that 7 marks should say 14 marks. If you were to gain an extra 14 marks in your exam, each grade boundary, top of my head, is about 30-40 marks. So gaining an extra 14 marks does not close the grade boundary, because let's say you're at the very low end of grade 3 and you gain an extra 14 marks, it's not enough to get you a grade 4. If it's the same with a grade 7, if you're at the very low end of grade 6 and you want to get a 7, that 14 marks might not be enough to push you over. Well, let's now instead start in March. Okay, March, 11 weeks until the exam, about 11 weeks. So that's going to be 22 marks. I should say 22 marks. Well, 22 marks, again, isn't enough, or probably won't be enough, to push over grade boundary. Now, if you're only a few marks off a grade 4, 22 marks will push you into a grade 4. But if you're not, again, you don't know where you are in grade 3, but you will be taking look out the equation if you start earlier. Okay, September. Well, 37, what's 37 times 2? That's 74 marks. If you were to revise, let's say for 2 hours extra a week on your own accord, and each 1 hour gets you 1 mark, and we're doing 2 hours a week, September to your exam in year 11 is going to be an extra 37 weeks. So that's an extra 74 marks you could get. Might not work out exactly like that, might be more, might be less, but 74 marks is about 2 grade boundaries. If you can do that and get these extra 2 grade boundaries, well, that will take you from the bottom of grade 3 to the top of grade 4 and might push you into a grade 5. Let's do the same for higher tier. Say you're aiming for a grade 7, but you're at the bottom of grade 6. Well, doing what I've just said there gets you to the top of grade 7, might get you a grade 8. So look what happens if you start earlier. So look what happens if we do more hours. So instead of 2 hours a week, we do 3 hours a week. Instead of we do 1 day a week, we do 3 days a week. Instead of starting in January, we start in September. We've done, so what have we done there? So hours, double your hours, double the amount of days, double the amount of time that you spend over the course of the year. So instead of starting in January, we start in September. We've doubled it, doubled it, doubled it. That is that's a multiplier of 8, isn't it? So you've done 8 times more by only doubling certain things. Double the hours, double the days you do it for, and double the amount of time that you give yourself until your exam. So look how much we've gained there. Absolutely loads. Next one is do more topics. Okay, so if you have 2 choices, you're allowed to choose both. So sometimes we think choices, we have to choose one thing or the other. Choose everything if you can. When it comes to revision, make the choices to choose both. So we've got 2 scenarios here. Scenario 1 is you revise all the topics you know and sort of know, but you ignore the hard stuff. That's what a lot of people do. You'd be surprised how many people do that. So if you revise all the stuff you know, you can solidify that and make it more solid, make it more foundational, and you can guarantee those marks. Let's say that's 50% of it, and you've done that, but you've not revised the hard stuff, so you cap yourself at 50%. Or reverse this, scenario 2. Again, a lot of people do this. I would say half people do this. So scenario 2 is revise all the things I know that I suck at, but I assume the things that I know I'm just going to remember. So if I'm looking through this, for example, and I'm thinking, okay, so I found, okay, volume of cylinders, I can't do that, I'll spend an hour on it. So I spent an hour on it, and then looking through this, I'm like, okay, I know how to multiply, so I'm not going to bother. But then it gets to the exam, and question 1 is multiply is 2 numbers, and you think, I didn't revise it. It's stressful. I'm feeling anxious. It's pressurized. I can see that person next to me is already on question 3, and I can't do this one. What do you think? I'll leave it for later. Question 2 is do this BidMass question. I know how to do it, and I know I knew how to do it, but I forgot because of the pressure. And then you can't do question 1, you can't do question 2. And then the rest of the paper becomes more stressful because you didn't practice the basics. So scenario 3 is you need to do both. You have to practice both. So how you spend your time on those, like I said earlier, it could be daily do hard things, weekly do medium things, and monthly do easy things. Maybe you could do that. Next one is do more papers. Past papers are like driving lessons. The more you do, the better you will be at maths or driving or whatever you want to say there. And the second quote there is the GCSE exam has exam questions on it. So if the driving test has driving on it and we practice driving, we'll be more likely to pass the driving test. So if the GCSE maths exam has exam questions on it, if we practice exam questions, we are going to be more likely to pass the GCSE maths exam, which has exam questions on it. Okay, so let's do that. So try this. I want you to do this today. Get a practice paper and do 10 questions. This is just an example. You could do any variation of this. So get a practice paper and do 10 questions. Okay, then mark the answers. Then the things that you don't know, the things that you got wrong on there, I want you to go to Maths Genie or Corbett Maths or YouTube. YouTube if you want to be super easy. You could go to any of those 3 websites. And the thing you couldn't do, let's say it was Pythagoras theorem. You go into YouTube, how to do Pythagoras theorem. The first video that comes up, if it's got say over 30,000 views, it's like that's a good video. Watch that one. Do the video, watch it. Try that question again that you got wrong. Oh, I still can't do it. Watch the video again and keep repeating. Next, go back to the test, do the same thing. Like I just said there, do another 10 questions. Pick out the 10 things you can't do, YouTube it, learn them. Go back to those 10 questions, try them again. The things you still can't do, back into YouTube, and just keep rinsing and repeating. Okay, that's all we need to do. So here is the effect. Okay, I'm going to go back on some slides and show you the effect. So here's the effect. If I make it easier to do it, I'm going to make my revision twice as easy. Okay, that's one factor of 2. If I make it more interesting, I'm going to be able to stay at it for longer. That's another multiple of 2. If I make it more meaningful and I can attach some deep purpose to it, another factor of 2. Let's make it repeatable. If I can make it repeatable, I've made it twice as effective. If I spend an hour at something and then I can't repeat it, that hour's wasted. But if I can repeat it, that hour's meaningful, doubly effective. Then I'd do more hours. If I can double the hours I make, it's twice as effective. If I can double the amount of days that I do it for, 6 times. Okay, start earlier. So instead of doing 6 months of revision, we do 12 months of revision or 18 months, however, it's another doubling. So that's 7. Let's do more topics. Do more papers. So I'm not going to count those ones, but I've doubled it 7 times. If I start with the number 2 and then times it by 2 and I do it 7 times, that's 2 to the power of 7. Okay, so this is the compounding effect. I have made this 128 times better than if I'd just done none of those things. Okay, so let's talk about the effect. Talk about being more effective. If I can so much as be twice as effective, okay, then I can do twice as much. So this is my effectiveness. This is how much I do. If I can double the effectiveness, if I can double the amount of output that I do, I have quadrupled the amount that I can do. I've got a nice Mr. Beast quote there. This is about making better videos online on YouTube. And he says, if you can spend twice as long making one video, you will get 10x the views. So that's what I want you to think about. That's the key takeaway here. So we go back to this. I want you to make it twice as easy. I want you to make it twice as interesting. People look at this and think, well, it's maths, I can't make it interesting. Yes, you can. It's a mindset. Get out of your head that maths is not interesting. Get out of your mind that it's stupid, that it's rubbish, that it's useless, and that you can't do it and it's boring. That's you telling yourself those things, okay? You're telling yourself it's hard. Don't tell yourself those things. That's why I say start the sessions with really easy stuff, build momentum. Then I want you to make it meaningful. Have a conversation with yourself. Tell yourself why you need it. Tell yourself why you want to do it. Practice the marks, not the grades. Make it twice as meaningful. Make it repeatable. So if an hour session you can't repeat, that hour session was useless. Do the things in the session, like I said on the slide, that makes it repeatable, that makes it twice as effective. Then let's do more volume. Let's do more of it. Let's double our hours, triple our hours. Instead of 1 day a week practicing math, let's do 4 days a week. Instead of starting in January of year 11, let's start in January year 10. Or if you're in year 11 now, start today. Let's start earlier. Let's do more papers. Let's do more papers, and let's do more topics. And that will be the effect. If you implement these things, I promise you and guarantee you that you will increase the likelihood that you not only achieve the grade that you're after, you will smash through that target grade and you'll get a much better grade. This does not have to be just applied to maths. You can apply this to any one of your topics that you want. And if you do these things, I guarantee you're going to get better than what you got. Okay, now here's the other thing I want to talk about. I just want to end on. Okay, before I go to implementation. I don't want you to be thinking about these things and be thinking to yourself, well, that thing won't work for me, so my brain doesn't really work on that one, or maybe I can't start earlier because that doesn't work for me, or I tried that 2 years ago. No, a fool would look at something and go, that doesn't work for me. A smart person says, well, let's try this for me, and oh, that didn't work for me. Let's try this slightly different way. That didn't work either. Let's try this slightly different variation on the advice that he said, and try, that works. Because let me give you an example. I've got so many books here. I've got so many business books on how to be a better tutor, how to market better, all these sort of things. I've read this book recently, just an example, first one I picked up, and I have tried every single technique in this book, and now 90% of them made my business worse. It just happened, made it slightly worse, or I tried it and it just didn't quite work. But the 10% of things that worked have made my life so much better, and that's the same with everything I've been doing. So don't just look at something and think to yourself, well, that's not going to quite work out. Try it. Try it again, try it again, try it again. So, as promised, let's talk about the implementation. So our final quote for you here is, plans are useless if you can't stick to them, and goals are useless if you don't have a plan. So we need a plan, but the plan needs to be good and the plan needs to be implemented properly. So I'm going to give you 2 methods of how you can implement all the stuff that I've just talked about. So method number 1 is take a test. Any past paper. Could be off Maths Genie, it could be off the AQA website or EdXL website, whatever. Type into Google GCSE Maths, insert your exam board, past papers, and then look at paper 1, paper 2, paper whatever. So start on paper 1. Then mark the answers. Then the stuff you got wrong, you're going to go to Google, YouTube, Maths Genie, or Corbett Maths, and you're going to type that thing in and you're going to practice that. So, doing more hours. Let's start with 45 minutes a day, 4 times a week. You pick the days. And on the paper, the stuff you got wrong, let's say you've got a list of 10 topics. Well, on the first session, you did that topic, second session, the second topic, etc. Okay, and then repeat steps 1 to 3 100 times. I've just said that number as a completely random number. You just need to repeat that as many times as you need to repeat it to ensure and to remove the chance and to remove the hope out of and remove the luck out of you getting your desired result. Okay, so you repeat that as many times as you need. The second one, it's a slightly different variation. I think these books are really great. These are £5 off Amazon. And by the way, if you can't afford the £5 and you're having tuition with me, I will blooming well buy you one because these are brilliant. Now, if you turn to the second page, you will see the contents page. And you can just go down the contents page and see what you can and can't do. Or what I would do is go to the first the first set of questions, and I'd say, okay, well, let's work through the first 5 pages. Let's work through this one, etc. And then after 5 pages, mark all your work. And then you've got a complete list of things that you can and can't do. Take the things you can't do, stick them into, you guessed it, Google, YouTube, Corbett Maths, Maths Genie. Stick them into these websites. Practice them. Still do the implementation of everything else we said. Is do a certain amount of hours, a certain amount of times a week, starting today. And if you do that and repeat step 2 to 5, again, I've put 100 times, but as many times as you think that you need it to be able to repeat and do everything that I've said. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I've waffled on for a long time. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions about this, obviously contact me by email. So cheers, everyone. Thanks for listening.